Okay guys, so welcome to school. This is going to be the first lesson of the week. Essentially what I am trying to attempt during these YouTube videos is so that I can set you up for the completion of the entire packet that Ms. Wallen and I gave you. This again is the first set, and some of the questions that need to be answered in the packet are the following. What is a rational number? What is an irrational number? What are integers, whole numbers? How do you find the sum and the product of these numbers? How do you write an expression in standard form? What is the leading coefficient? And how do you multiply binomials using the box method? Now today we will only focus on answering the first two questions. So what I will do is I will try to introduce the topic. Now again, these are topics that we have covered in the class. However, due to these circumstances, I know that everyone probably will not be able to, get into like new material. So what we want to do is be able to review some of the units that we have covered already so that we can set you up for that Regents exam. Now, I do not know what will happen to the Regents based on the current climate. However, I do know that we do not want you to forget some of the material that we have worked so hard for during the entire year. So again, we will continue through this means, and I want to let you know that I will be available from 12 to 1 every day. So in case you have any question regarding the packet, you can always email me or send me some sort of like hangout message, or via Google Classroom you can always contact Ms. Wallen or myself. So you have so many resources that you can contact us with, and you have these videos that you can reference back all the time. So with that said, let us move on to the first sample. So let me just go here. There we go. Okay. So, okay. Now, you might remember that we have done this before. So again, a rational number is a number that can, and forgive me, I have a laptop that is not really compatible with a touchscreen, so my handwriting might be a little ugly. A rational number is a number that can be expressed as a fraction. Okay, so you don't have to write this, but it's definitely good that you can see it. An irrational number cannot be expressed as a fraction. Now, in some of these problems, you will see the word sum, and the sum just means addition. Okay, and the product means a multiplication, right? So it means multiplication. Okay. Once we have established that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the first exercise in our packet, which is going to be this one. Now, I am not doing the exercises in order, so you might want to go ahead and kind of reference the packet with me. Again, make sure that you take a picture of the work that you have in a separate sheet on a notebook, and then upload it to Google Classroom. If you have any doubts regarding the submission process, I have already uploaded a video in which I show you exactly what app you should download on your phone and where you should go to submit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is this problem. It says the product of the square root of 576 and the square root of 684. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the word product, because I already know that means multiply. Okay, alright. So the second thing is I want to determine if the two numbers that they gave me are rational or irrational. Now, I went to my little handy calculator. You don't need a fancy calculator. In fact, you can use some of the calculators that are online. You can just type in on Google Calculator and it will take you straight to a calculator that you can use for these exercises. So the first thing I wanted to do is check if the square root of 576 is a rational or irrational. Now if I punch it in, I'm going to get the square root of 576 equals 24. Because this is a whole number, I can definitely write this number as a fraction, 24 over 1, which means this number is rational. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for the square root of 684. Now, if I type in the square root of 684, I'm going to get this funny number, which I'm going to do right now. 684 will give me 26.15339.366 and so on. Your calculator basically gave you the the closest approximation, and there is one way that we can turn this into we can find out whether it's rational or irrational by branching out the number into square roots. However, because you see that this number kind of repeats on and on and on, it will not turn into a fraction. So we were going to call this irrational. Okay. So one hint you can get is sometimes numbers, funny numbers that go on and on and on and on without any sort of pattern to them are definitely irrational. So for example, we were trying to multiply these numbers. So if I multiply these numbers, irrational and irrational, I'm going to get an irrational numbers. So let me write that statement down. If I multiply an irrational and a rational number, I'm going to get an irrational number. Okay, so let's look at some of our answer choices. So it says the product is irrational because both factors are irrational. So we know that the square root of 576 is actually a rational number. So it cannot be that one because one of them is rational. The second option says the answer is rational because both factors are rational. We also know that the square root of 684 is an irrational number, so we're going to go ahead and eliminate answer choice number 2. Okay, the third choice says irrational because one factor is irrational. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that answer because that is the conclusion that I reached in my study of these two numbers, right, in the sentence that I wrote. Now just for kicks, let us read answer choice number 4. It says the product or the result is rational because one factor is rational. So I know that 24 is a rational number, but if I multiply these two numbers, I'm going to get an irrational number. So let us move on to the next one. Oh, okay. So I did some work previously, so let me clear this page. No, let me undo that and let me go ahead and clear all my annotations. So at this point you probably know the answer already, but let us just go ahead and pretend that we didn't see the answer. So I'm going to write next to the square root of 2, I'm going to write irrational, because I went ahead and did that punch that number into my calculator, and I got a funny number. So just to give you what that funny number is, it is going to be the square root of 2, which is 1.41421356. So this number any which way I try will never turn into a fraction. So let us go here. 3 times the square root of 3. Now I know the square root of 3 is an irrational number. So if I multiply a rational number and an irrational number, I know that I'm going to get an irrational number. Okay? And I will not give you the funny number for that. The square root of 16 is going to be 4, which is a whole number, which I can express as 4 over 1. Okay, so this is a rational number. Perfect. The square root of 9 is going to give me 3, which can also be written as 3 over 1, which is a rational number. Okay, so now I will look at my answer choices. Now, number 1 says I add L and M. L and M are these two. So if I add two irrational numbers, I cannot get a rational number. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate answer choice number 1. Okay, so now let's look at 2, M plus N. So M is an irrational and N is a rational. If I add an irrational and a rational, I am not going to get a rational number. So, and then you can check that by yourself using your calculator. Number 3 says N and P. Okay, so N and P are both rational numbers, and if I add them, I'm going to get a rational number. This one makes a lot of sense, because both are rational. If I add the two of them, then I will definitely get something that is alike. P plus L. P plus L, I'm going to get one rational number and one irrational number, and by default we already know that that cannot be answered because we eliminated answer choice 2, and answer choice 4 is just a variation of that. So let us try the last problem, which is going to be this one. Clear annotations. Okay. Clear annotations. Okay. So let us go through this last problem, and then after that I will lead us on to further questions. I will definitely suggest to you that you post those questions on the YouTube video that will be uploaded to Google Classroom. So make sure you do that. Okay, problem 1. Which statement is not always true? Okay, so the product of two irrational numbers is irrational. So now let us think of two irrational numbers. So I can think of the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. These two numbers are irrational, right? But if I multiply them, I'm going to get the square root of 4, which in turn gives me 2, which I can express as a fraction, 2 over 1. Okay, so if I multiply these two irrational numbers, I get a rational number. So this statement is not always true, right? Okay, the next one says the product of two rational numbers is rational. So I'm sorry, so this is not always true, so let me put a star next to it, because we're looking for the statement that is not always true. The second choice says the product of two rational numbers is rational. Now this will always be true, because if I multiply 2 times 2, I will get 4. And 4 is a rational number, and I can multiply any numbers like that. So this is always true. So I'm going to cross that out. Okay. The third choice says the sum of two rational numbers is rational. So if I add 2 plus 2, I'm going to get 4, and that is a rational number. And this seems to be true all the time. You can try other variations of that, but I'm going to assume and conclude that that is true all the time. Okay, the fourth choice says the sum of a rational number and an irrational number is always irrational. So I can think of 2 plus the square root of 2 will yield an irrational number. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is always true, and I will end up with my answer choice number 1, and I apologize if I confuse you by starring the answer. Okay, but the answer choice that is not always true is problem number 1. So with this video, I understand that it is the first of a few video lessons, and I will definitely get better. But I hope that this video was helpful to you and that you can use this video to complete all of the problems related to this topic in the packet by today. So hopefully this is a nice resource for you, and you can definitely pose further questions in the YouTube comments and also reach Miss Wallen or myself via email or Google Classroom. So good luck, and pose questions away anytime you want.